to a brand new episode of Coming Distractions brought to you by the Nerdpocalypse podcast. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Terrence.
What's up?
All right, guys. We're here to talk about Joker. This is obviously the soon-to-be released solo Joker movie. Not in the DCEU, but sort of in the DC extended part of the universe, I guess. This is starring Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck / the Joker. This was directed by Todd Phillips. It also stars Zazie Beetz, Robert De Niro. So the general premise of this movie, actually, before I get into the premise, let me do a sort of a. There's no spoilers in this review. Yep. I'll say that. But there's also, I want to say this for comic book fans because I think it's important going in. This is an Elseworld story. This is a what if story origin for the Joker. It is not meant to be like the exact main line as you know it from the comic books, right? Like it's not. It's fine, right? In that regard, that's okay. It's fine with me. I don't care. And it's not tied again. It's not tied into the Ben Affleck part of the universe, right? As Batman. Okay, that being said, the premise of this movie is this guy, Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin Phoenix, he is a guy who has mental issues, like he just does. Specifically, he suffers from sort of a interesting psychosis, and it is a real thing. I can't remember the name of it, but where he laughs uncontrollably when he's feeling nervous or scared or upset, right? So basically, him laughing does not match what's going on inside of his brain. And then he also laughs at things that he finds funny, but he's laughing at like the least opportune moments, right?
Right. He laughs like someone will tell a joke, but he'll laugh maybe like 10 seconds later, like, but I just told. Okay.
Right. So it's so because he suffers from that, and he's just kind of a skinny guy, like he's a very meek person. He lives with his mother, and he's just. By the way, his mother, Penny Flack, is played by Frances Conroy. I want to point that out because she is a stellar actress in her own right? Yes. Like if you know her from like 6 Feet Under and stuff like that. So he lives with his mother, and so he suffers from that. He's a professional clown, and he's got all these gigs. He works with this company, and they kind of send him around to do different gigs. And he's just this kind of sorry sack kind of guy who is just abused by life, right? Yeah. Like he just cannot catch a fucking break. Like that is the general premise. And then he sort of has a psychotic snap, and then he becomes what we know as the Joker, and it goes on from there. Again, no spoilers in this review at all. Terrence, what did you think of the movie?
Look, everyone knows the controversy. We're probably going to get into it a little bit later on. When it first came out, when we first saw the trailer, I'm like, this looks like it's going to be very good. It just looks like it's going to be like it's Joaquin Phoenix, Todd Phillips directed Old School, which I don't like at all. But he did The Hangover, which is fine. He's a comic director, and a lot of times comedy comes from tragedy. So this kind of fits. This is a great movie. It's really good. It's really really good. From whether you like the fact that they like retcon his, again, this is like a one-off, whatever, or whether you like the fact that they did that or not, you can't deny the fact that it's a good movie. Like you may not like it. Like there are a bunch of movies I don't like, but I will admit that they're good. I just don't. It's just not my cup of tea. Like this is a great movie from a film standpoint.
Yeah, it's inarguable to me.
Yeah, it's great. It just is. Like this got the pacing is great. Like the performances are amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty stellar.
Joaquin Phoenix is one of the best actors we have out now. It's shot really well. It felt like it almost kind of started dragging in the middle, but like it snapped out of that really quickly. when certain things happen, I'm like, oh, okie dokie, and we're back. It's like 2 hours, so it's not super long. It's good. Like the one thing I'll say is if you didn't want to see the film to begin with, don't bother. But if you had an inkling of wanting to see it, and then you saw all of the controversy, and you're like, oh wow, I don't know now. If you let the controversy, if you wanted to see this film and you let the controversy make you not see it, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, I honestly believe that, because it's such a great movie.
Yeah, no,
it just is.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. Yeah. Like, it's one thing you and I talked about when we left the theater was the movie just has a general sense of unease throughout
the sense of dread from the very first frame of the movie.
Right, and you're just
kind of like you know what's gonna happen.
Right.
Because you know the end. Like, he's the Joker. You know the end, but like just that journey to get to how he becomes the Joker is just...
It's rough.
You're like, Jesus Christ, dude. All right.
This poor son of a bitch. But at the same time, what they do, and I appreciate it, is I don't feel sorry for him in the end.
No. Like, if you feel sorry for him, you're a psychopath.
Right. And that was one of the big arguments. We were like, well, I don't want to feel sorry for the Joker. He's a psychopath. You don't. You shouldn't. Like,
you do. At certain points, you absolutely do.
Yeah.
Like, they do it on purpose. Like, they make him a very sympathetic character. Up to a point. And then you go, and then it's like, damn.
Yeah, okay, that's not...
Like, it's funny because you and I, we watched like Mindhunter.
Right.
Like, the story isn't any different from any
serial killers,
television procedural about serial killers or anything like that. This is essentially what it is. Like, he's a serial killer. Like, he would be on an episode of Mindhunter if the Joker was a real person. Right. He would be interviewing him in a room, and he'd be like, "Yeah, my mom was abusive," or whatever, so on and so forth. And I just started murdering people.
Right. Exactly. And I'd be like, "Wow, this episode's really good." Yeah. So for me, I thought my top line review of the movie is I thought it was great. I really did. I think your point is correct, which is from a filmmaking standpoint. It is hard. It is inarguable to me to look at this movie and know film and understand how film works and understand how pacing works to just be like, this is a bad film. I cannot imagine saying that because that's crazy to me. I thought it was stellar. Look, I like Joaquin Phoenix. I think he is a tremendous actor. I think he's one of the best actors of his generation, easily. He puts his all into it. Like, it is clear. Like, really he becomes that character. And that journey of, like you said, like, there's just a sense of dread from the beginning frames. That, from the time that movie opens and that ride until one of the things I wanted to see in this movie was this sense of Arthur Fleck and the Joker almost being two completely different people. Because I think that is important if you're going to tell a Joker story, right? You can't just be like, hey, he's kind of the Joker the whole time. Yeah. And then, like, he just kind of puts on makeup at the end. Like, that's not what you want. You want to see Arthur Fleck, figuratively die at a certain point in the movie and the Joker be born at that time, right? And then and there is a moment in this movie where you go, that's it. Like, that's the moment, right? And you see it. And that performance by Joaquin Phoenix is why it works so well. Look, it's gritty. It looks really good. Like, it's just shot incredibly well. The supporting actors, De Niro, Zazie Beetz, Francis Conroy, and others, Brett Cullen specifically, who plays Thomas Wayne, they're all great. Yeah. Like, and the movie has some messaging in it that is very interesting. I'll say that because I don't want to spoil it, because to know what that messaging, that's one specific message is like kind of a big deal. But
it's very timely.
Yeah, it is.
It's purposely done.
Yeah, it definitely is purposely done. And I think your point about if you let the controversy be the guide and whether or not you are going to see this, if you wanted to already see it, I think you're right. I think it does do you. I think you are doing yourself a disservice. This is not, because I know there were some people who automatically were like, this is a DC movie. Fuck that movie, because all the DC movies are bad. This is literally like nothing DC has ever done.
Yeah.
And I would argue, though I've had much more fun at other movies, because this is not supposed to be a fun
this is
romp.
not fun.
Like, it's not a fun.
There are funny parts because he's a comedy director initially. Like, he does a very good job of sprinkling comedy into it, because there are some parts that are incredibly funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this really dark movie.
Right.
And they just work.
Right. But I have certainly had more fun at Marvel movies, like
Of course.
like you know what I mean. It's like this movie is not meant to be like a fun romp, good time. That being said, this is a better movie than the DCEU or the MCU have ever done. Period. Like period. Just as a filmmaking standpoint, it just is. It just is, right? And that doesn't mean I don't like if I had to sit down and watch one movie 5 times, is it going to be Joker or Endgame? It's going to be Endgame. Like I'm going to have, but it's because they're two very different types of movies. But as it stands, like from a filmmaking perspective, this is tremendous. Like it really is. I thought like the inspirations from like King of Comedy or
I've never seen King of Comedy. I've seen Taxi Driver. And
Taxi Driver is definitely there. Like you can see it. That being said, it doesn't ape it as much as people thought it would, right? Like there are clearly like they like these movies. You know, Todd Phillips likes these movies, but it's not the only thing. Like there is a lot of his own shit here, right? Like there is, and you know, one big concern was whether or not they would explain too much of the Joker's mythos. But in a way, they do what they did with Ledger's Joker. You don't know.
There are some wild things in there, but like you don't know. You're like, is that what it did? No. But they just do it in a different way.
Right. And
which
so
I liked it. I enjoyed.
Right. So like that concern of like they're gonna give you the laundry list of all the stuff in his background. They don't. No. They really don't. And I think that works well. And I think that was a good choice. And I think it still keeps that character fresh and unknown in a lot of ways, right? I thought it was really fucking great. Like and I guess I'm not really surprised because again, it's Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm not sure I've ever seen him in anything that I haven't loved him in. Like I'm just not sure I have. But yeah, he put in work, dude. Like, if he gets nominated for Best Actor, he deserves it.
He did a lot of physical acting, which was creepy as hell.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
His laugh is unnerving. Like, it is fucking unnerving.
Like, when he was doing the high-pitched laugh, I'm like, stop.
Please don't do that.
I don't like that. And it was like, it wasn't when he did anything. It's like, you know, the Joker, like, starts laughing after he, like, kills somebody or does.
Right.
Like, it was just out of nowhere, like an RKO.
Right. Like, because of his psychosis, right?
Like,
and
this is weird. Stop.
And that psychosis is such a great point to make in the roughly the beginning of the movie. Yeah. Like, just so you know, because the opening scene, you're kind of like, what's going on here? Yeah. And then they explain it, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. And then when you know that, you realize, like, if you kind of sort of extrapolate it out to like what you know about the Joker and how he behaves in general, you're like, why would anybody be like that? That's why he's like that. Like even in his psychotic break, he still has that part of his original psychosis is there.
Yeah. It's weird because there's certain parts when it's got triggered by, like, I guess whether he's scared or nervous. Right. It gets to a point where it almost like it hurts when he starts laughing. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, he's like almost like choking.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess we could get into some of the other controversy before we get out of here.
Some people said it's going to be too violent. Look, I've been watching movies for fucking 35 years.
Right.
I've seen movies far more violent than this. I've seen movies that are exactly the same premise. Like, the only problem we have now is because we live in a society where people, like, this is one of those things where I'm like, people are too woke. I'm like, okay, we get it. Incels, whatever. After watching the movie, I don't get it.
There is nothing about, to me, there's nothing about it that would inspire that sort of.
Like the messaging to the movie is not, I would argue that has absolutely nothing to do with incels and everything to do with like power dynamics in this society, period.
Right. Like there's no anti-woman thing.
No.
There's no anti-people of color thing. Like there's none of that. Like
people just making up shit at this point. If that was an issue that people were talking about, they're just making shit up.
Yeah, it's not true.
That doesn't make any sense.
Like it's not in the movie, guys. It's on the movie.
Isn't at all.
So like it is literally about power dynamics, right? Like the society, like this regular guy being pounded on by society.
Yeah, and what happens, like some people, they snap. It just happens.
Yeah, it does.
It does. And unfortunately, with his mental state, and the fact that people are treating him like shit, I get it. I'm not going to do it. I hope. But I understand, right. And that's the character. Like if you have an issue with that, I can't help you. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, what's ironic to me is the Ledger Joker is not as far from this as people wanted it to be. Like, ironically, like, you don't know anything really in his background. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, you don't. Yeah. You don't see him fall into a vat of chemicals because that was not a thing in The Dark Knight either. But somehow that was completely acceptable, but it's wildly not acceptable now. Yeah. Okay. It wasn't that long ago, guys. Like, those things are not different. He was just a fucking psychopath in The Dark Knight. Yeah, he's just a psychopath here.
Yeah.
It's not different.
At least in this, you understand why.
Right, like he just showed up.
There's no backstory to him in the Dark Knight, but like you don't really know why at all. Like in this, they give you somewhat of an explanation, right? Not by not giving him like I grew up in such and such, because you really don't know. They say it, but you don't know if it's true or not. It's like, is that true?
You have no idea. Like there's a lot of just sort of general madness that's going on.
Now the violence in the movie, because the movie is not like an action movie, it's a character study. When those violent sequences hit, like I've seen a lot of movies, and there was a scene in this movie where I literally turned away from the screen. It was just one thing because that's the shit that I don't like,
right?
But I'm like, Jesus Christ, and that wasn't the snap, that wasn't the breaking point, but that was one prior to that. That was like, it's really fucked up, but at the same time,
there's really only
four.
Yeah, 4 moments of like legitimate violence in the movie, but because of the pacing and how generally uneasy the film makes you feel, when those moments of brutality hit, they are so incredibly visceral, and you're just like, wow, really are. Right, and it hits much more than like a guy machine gunning down 30 people. You know what I mean? Like in like a regular movie, like it works so much more powerfully here than it would in those kind of scenarios. So, like the violence is, I don't think the violence is like out of hand or whatever.
It isn't.
It really is not. But it is well timed and it is well done so that it actually has impact. Yeah. Let's talk about
unnecessary violence.
Right. And I think that's what people were thinking. And I'm like, again, this is not like that wildly different than a Joker you saw before. It's just not.
Like, you can't say you really, if you haven't seen the movie, and this is going to sound just fucked up, if you haven't seen the movie and you're basing it off of what other people are saying, shut the fuck up. Like, honestly, if you haven't seen the movie, you can't say shit about it until you've actually seen it.
I agree with that.
You can't
because I've seen a lot of speculation.
The movie is bullshit. Like, the narrative that people are throwing out is bullshit. It just is. I don't know why they've done it. I don't know why it's become such a big fucking deal. I don't know if it's because people don't like the fact that it's not the Joker that they know and love.
I think that's most of it. Right? I think if this movie was like at the end, they were like, and there comes Batman at the end, and it was like fucking Ben Affleck. Like, I don't think people would have nearly as much of an issue of it. I just don't.
I would be offended if that happened.
They'd be like, what
the fuck is this?
Right. Like, because this movie works so well on its own. Yeah. And it's in Gotham. They don't pretend that it's not. Again, Thomas Wayne is in the movie. They don't pretend. Yeah. And it's tied, by the way, and this is an important note, it is tied very tightly to the Batman mythos.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it's tied, and it's logical. It makes sense. Like, it does. It's not like they run away from there where it's just like, oh, here's Arthur Fleck in a random town, and like, we don't talk about. No, like, they don't run from that. It's just not tied into the DC EU as we're going forward. That's literally all it is, right? But I mean, Todd Phillips, who directed this movie, has been saying a lot of really stupid shit. Just shut the fuck up.
Let the movie speak for itself.
Right. And he's been like, oh, people are too woke and that's why comedy has died and da-da-da-da. Look, I'm not going to, I mean, we had a whole conversation on Black on Black Cinema about that. You can check that out in our last preview episode. But that's all stupid. But again, don't let one idiot opinion on something, and yes, he is the director, but it's still an idiot opinion, stop you if you wanted to see this movie. Because I don't think it's promoting any, like, there's sort of like a weird narrative, like it's promoting more violence or it's promoting, no, it's not. It really isn't. I mean, it's a movie with the Joker in it. Like that's all it is, and it's a damn good. My only issue, honestly, with this movie is that, in a way, I really wish it was tied. I wish their universe was tied to this because he's really good. Like, he's a really good Joker where you could just be like, who's Jared Leto? And just fucking push his ass aside.
You don't need that nigga.
Yeah, like he could just show up in the next movie and shoot Jared Leto in the head and be like, "Who the fuck was this dude?" And then just I'm the Joker now. Like I would be okay with that. That's the only thing, and that was a criticism I had when this movie was announced.
Yeah.
Is that you would have people ultimately making the comparison between this Joker and the Joker of their extended universe. And if this one is better, and it is 100% better, people are going to want this Joker in that universe. I, for one, as a person who's seen this movie, would love that. Yeah. But it's not going to happen. So that's my only criticism. Like, it's...
When is the Batman?
That comes out...
Does that take... What year?
That takes place in the 90s. And this is the 80s. And this takes place in the 80s. You technically could make it happen. Like, you could...
You'd have to push it like... No...
Yeah, like
15 years.
Yeah,
into the future.
Yeah, it'd be a little weird, but the thing is with this movie and like just looking at it from a film perspective, I thought it was stellar. I really did.
This is
highly recommend it. I just
4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I would say it right there too. It's really good. And again, if you are a fan of films and you are a fan of filmmaking, see this movie. If you are a fan of comic book movies and you want to see something different, something that is an interesting take on a character, this is it. If you have kids, do not take them to see this movie. I cannot stress that enough. Do not take your children to see it. This is not a kid's movie. Like some people are like, oh, maybe I take my 7-year-old. This is not. No, this is a unique.
Traumatizing. Yeah. Like, what are you doing?
This is a uniquely adult-oriented film. Yeah. Like it is. There's no nudity in it or anything like that. But it is an adult film. Like it deals with very adult issues. Look, if you're not interested in seeing it, don't see it. Like if you were like, nope, I'm not seeing it, don't go hate watch it. That's stupid. Like to just hate on it, that's dumb because it's a good film. But if you were interested in it, take Terrence's point to heart. If you were interested in it and you still want to see it, go see it. This is a damn good movie. It really is. And it very well might. Look, I don't, some people are like, oh, it's going to change the genre or, oh, it didn't live up to changing the genre. It was never meant to change the genre. It was designed to be a one-off, interesting character piece on an interesting character. And they did it. They pulled it off.
Yeah.
They did. It doesn't have to change anything, but it's a damn good. Just like Logan didn't change anything, but it was a damn good movie. In that same vein. By the way, if you like Logan, you'd probably like this, honestly. So that's us, 4.5 out of 5 for both of us for Joker, and we will see you guys next time.
Take it easy.
Bye. You're watching the Nerdpocalypse YouTube channel. Make sure you click that button to subscribe and check out our weekly podcast where we talk about movie, TV, news, tech, and weird stories from around the internet.